The inspiration for Calling Elvis was, in fact, my wife's brother saying he was trying to get in touch with her on the phone. He said, getting in touch with Lou is like calling Elvis. Trying to get in touch with Elvis, I think that's what he said. That was actually gave me the initial idea.
Mark had said that the track was all about the difference in a kind of a non-communication thing, from the sublime to the ridiculous.
And it is essentially a song about not communicating, in a way.
He said it's like coming off the, in a concert in Rio, 200,000 fans been screaming at you all night, and you try and ring home and you either can't get through because the operator in Guatemala has got it all wrong, or you get through and the wife's changing the nappies, or, you know, this thing, and there's kind of difference, sort of a non-communication. It's like Calling Elvis.
Well, Steve Barron, who did the Money for Nothing clip, has done a thing for Calling Elvis. And he got the idea to animate, in the same as he animated Money for Nothing, he had the idea of using the Thunderbirds people and using puppets and mixing it in with a real situation. In other words, yours truly tries to call home. I
always kept in the back of my mind that it would be great to find a track that was right for it, and along came Calling Elvis.
I like the Thunderbirds because it was a real, it was like a Brit attempt at what we thought the future was going to be like.
Well, the idea for this video was obviously Steve Barron's. He dreamed the whole thing up, and I got a call from him one day to say that he'd like to meet me.
Just a few years ago I wanted to do Thunderbirds related video, a video where we built the band as puppets and things, and it's a very expensive operation because you're dealing with everything in miniature, and so all these sets in that miniature world have to be built, and the operation of the puppets and things very involved, time consuming.
He showed me the storyboard, and I decided that not only the idea looked great, but I'm a great fan of his, and so I was delighted really to be invited to join in.
Technically there's a lot of fiddly, very fiddly shots to do, things that involve a bunch of different elements timed, and it's just very time consuming.
The whole problem with making this video from my point of view is that first of all we had to recreate the whole technique, and then of course we had to build the puppets, the replicas of the band, and obviously we showed them at every stage to make sure they were happy, and Steve also checked them out, and at the end of the day I was really quite pleased. I think the likenesses are quite good. They are caricatures of course, but they're sort of kind caricatures.
The rhythm line in Calling Elvis is such that you can almost hear, you remember the head movement of the Thunderbirds was like, boom, boom, boom. It was like this bobbing movement that kind of went perfectly with this track, so I thought, you know, this is the one to do it to.
Whenever I've got a setup, he comes down and either says great or something less flattering, and we alter it and off we go. No, we've worked together very well.
There's really one interface with the puppets that goes on here early on, which is behind over puppet Mark's shoulder to the girl on the TV set, which is this abstract way of looking from inside the TV set. There's a certain lens we're using a lot of here because, you know, as part of the concept we wanted it all to be within places that you wouldn't normally be, like you're in the light socket and you're up to the spy hole on the door, and you're through the toaster and that sort of thing. And we're using this lens called a borescope, which is a very tricky, time-consuming lens to fiddle around with as well, but it gets great results. We ran the pictures of how they looked and things, and yeah, it always brought a laugh. I mean, I think, you know, obviously they're caricatures, but they're very good caricatures and very strong, and it looks it's you know, it's obviously a more abstract idea, but that's better. I mean, we've all seen bands getting up on stage a million times and playing away. This is a variation on that. This, you know, in scale, looks like a real rock and roll stage, and yet they're up there, the puppets. In fact, you're not even sure what size they are, I think, through some of it. but you know for sure it's not real. It's that edge off reality which makes it very interesting, and I don't think you've ever seen anything like it in music videos, which is another important thing, especially first single off the album. I think you've got to come out with something that is fresh, new, adventurous, brave, different, and totally complementary to the track. And that's what we tried to do on this.
Oh, it's always fun working with Steve, but it's always straight ahead. He gets on and does his stuff, and we just come in and stand about, try and look cool and play. Miserable failure, of course.
I acknowledged from the very beginning that this was his show, and I was making a contribution. And so we've worked together quite happily. So
we thought that the total contrast between Thunderbirds on a massive mission, all 5 of Thunderbirds on this massive mission, and this girl milling about her apartment, fixing the light bulb and chopping the peppers and things, was a real sublime to the ridiculous thing. And then the two kind of come together through the whole concept.
And it's kind of like the message on the machine, really. And it's actually quite tempting now when I call, you know, to actually say, Calling Elvis, does anybody?